It's December 8th, 2025. I'm David Sirota. 2025 has been a tremendous year for the artificial intelligence industry. Stock prices for AI companies have skyrocketed the second half of 2025, soaring beyond anyone's expectations and propping up an otherwise stagnant U.S. economy. And yet everywhere you turn, there's talk of an AI bubble, one bigger and more threatening than potentially the housing bubble of 2008 or the dot-com bubble of the early 2000s. So I've got questions. What makes this bubble so different? When is it going to pop? Is it going to pop? And if it does pop, what will that mean for the rest of us? Joining me today to answer some of those questions is Ed Zitron. Ed is a journalist, host of the Better Offline podcast, and an author of the forthcoming book, Why Everything Stopped Working, to be released in 2026. Ed, thanks for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with you and your journey. You have described yourself as an AI hater. You've also done some PR for tech companies. So tell us how you went from working with some of these tech companies to being a full-fledged, self-described AI hater.
So I was relatively naive in the past. I believed the tech industry was something that was building real things, and I guess that might have been the case up until about 2015. And I've just watched over the years, and as I've actually forced myself to kind of learn more, because I started writing my newsletter in 2020, really 2021 in all seriousness. When I started to dig into the real underbelly of it, the finances, what these companies were promising versus what they're actually delivering, I got to admit I became a little cynical with it. And I didn't really get into critiquing AI until very late 2023. And even 2024, I was still getting my feet wet. But as I looked into it, I just saw two very different things. This public-facing statement of AI is the biggest thing ever, it's the most important thing ever, it's going to make so much money, it's going to be amazing. And then you went and looked and, well, it didn't seem to do any of the stuff they were talking about, and it wasn't even making much money. And in fact, everyone was deeply unprofitable. Midway through last year, the Information put out a story saying OpenAI was on course to lose $5 billion in 2024. The moment I saw that, I started saying, this doesn't seem right at all. And this is an industry-wide problem, even with the public companies like the Microsofts, Googles, Metas, and so on of the world. They don't talk about AI revenue. No one does. Salesforce just gloriously announced they make, tens of millions of dollars a month selling AI, which is terrible for a company that makes billions. But for the most part, everyone is unprofitable. No one's talking about money. And those that do, it's teeny tiny amounts compared to the hundreds of billions of dollars of capital expenditures that have gone into propping up these GPUs to provide AI services.
That investment is really staggering. Fortune magazine cited the economist Jason Furman saying that the United States GDP growth in the first half of 2025 would have been 0.1% without investment in data centers. But the economy overall grew 3% during the first half of that year, and it's just going up. So this disconnect between the amounts of money being invested and the return on that investment, I think one question that comes up from that is that anything typical in the sense of, okay, we're making these capital investments, or the economy and these tech companies are making these capital investments, and we haven't gotten the return yet, but that the returns are, in theory, just over the horizon? Like, is that a possibility? Is there any precedent for the level of investment that we're seeing now being a precursor to the big returns over the horizon?
So that's the thing. This is nothing like anything we've had before as far as successful industries. Amazon Web Services is the one that everyone loves to quote. AWS, I think, ended up, I did the math, and it was about $65 billion over, no more than $70 billion over the course of 9 or 10 years of CapEx to build Amazon Web Services, which is a business that makes incredible amounts, tens of billions of dollars of profit a year. And in that case as well, like, just to be clear, about $60 to $70 billion, I think is fair to say. Hyperscalers have spent over $400 billion in CapEx just this year. So just completely different economics. But on top of this, what Amazon was investing in originally with AWS was servers. big servers, interconnect fiber, things that connect internet services. What the majority of CapEx is going into is either the construction or the literal GPUs themselves that go inside the data center, which takes years to build, and that's a whole other problem. But these GPUs effectively only do one thing, which is something to do with AI. It's either training or inference, which is the process of creating the output. Now, real simple thing here is these GPUs are released on a yearly cycle. NVIDIA's Jensen Huang's, they're going to replace them every year. So you have this asset that you know every single year is going to become less valuable. On top of that, they're extremely power intensive to run, which requires incredible amounts of cooling, specialist liquid cooling, HVAC technology. So you can't just take an old data center and fill it full of these new GPUs. You have to bulldoze the inside, retrofit, and all this good stuff. Or if you're building a new one, it takes about 2.5 years and $50 billion per gigawatt of data center capacity. So you've got these big data centers being built for one thing that's also horribly unprofitable and not particularly good. And no one is succeeding in selling very much of it either.
So AI comes with all of these potential risks: mass job loss, national security risks, not to say anything of the idea that all these stories about AI recommending people do horrible things, including commit suicide. I guess the overarching question is, if that's the case, what do you think is justifying all of this investment? I mean, how are tech CEOs justifying these investments if we see all these downsides and not big upsides?
So it's a wider economic theory that I have called the rot economy, which is everything's based on growth. The reason I bring this up is that all of these tech CEOs have been looking for the next big hypergrowth market. It's been a long time since cloud computing. They've got a lot of money out of cloud computing. Software as a service, big deal. Smartphones, okay. Since about 2015, the tech industry hasn't had a new thing. Even smartphones were great for Apple, kind of good for Google, great for Samsung, but beyond that, we've kind of eked out every iota of profit we can have. So these companies now, they need a new big thing. So around 2021, we had the metaverse, we had crypto, we had all of this AR, XR, VR nonsense. That was everybody trying to find the next big thing. So we had this situation where venture capital ended up getting quite stymied because you had a bunch of crap companies invested in 2021, 2022. Venture capitalists couldn't sell their stakes because the companies sucked. And it was a bubble in and of itself. The 2021 bubble, someone needs to do a book about that. 2021 drove the world more insane, I think, than 2022 in many ways. But nevertheless, venture capital had reached a point where they weren't getting more money from their limited partners. Then AI comes along. AI is great for a few reasons for executives. One, Monday, I'm sure you'll connect with this in particular. Monday CEO, not really obvious what they do all day. They love to say, Jensen Huang said on Rogan he reads 7,000 emails a day. Shut up, Jensen. But you don't really know what they do, neither do stockholders. But you know what stockholders can point at. They can say spending money. And AI is a marketing term. Emily Bender, Alex Hanna, the AI con, coined that. It's a marketing term. It doesn't really mean anything. But every stock that mentioned AI, number went up. So how do you prove that you're super into AI? You buy stuff. You're an executive. What can you do to actually prove you have a job? You buy things, you fire people, you hire people. Maybe you buy other companies, I guess. So all of these GPUs were bought kind of based on FOMO. It was just this thing of, this is the thing we've all agreed to do. How did things work in the past? Well, we shoved a bunch of money into them, and then money came out. And you may think, this is a little bit simplistic, Ed. How could that be that simple? It can be. These people are all pretty stupid. I know this sounds very broad, but Satya Nadella, the reason that Microsoft jumped onto AI is because he saw what ChatGPT did and said, I need that in Bing. That was the entire reason they started buying GPUs.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how much of this is good, chasing good money after bad, as the saying goes, or also this sort of keeping up with the Joneses idea in corporate America, that if you're a top executive and you're not investing in AI, are you worried that your own shareholders or your own investors are asking you what the hell you're doing? A sort of culture of, if you're not involved in this stampede, you must be doing something wrong. And then for those who are investing it, then putting more and more money into it because it's a sunk cost, because you don't want to necessarily admit that perhaps it's not generating the returns that you have promised, and you have to try to sort of big bet your way out of that. I mean, how much of that do you think is at play here? Those kinds of psychologies where you don't want to admit you were wrong if you're a top executive, that maybe you shouldn't be investing this much, and that you've got people yelling at you all the time saying, hey, shouldn't you be investing in AI? Like those aren't market fundamentals. Those aren't really economics. That's sort of human psychology. How much of that is at play?
I think a lot of it, because here's the other thing. So NVIDIA claimed in their, I think it was around their last earnings, maybe their CFO commentary, I'd have to look, that they shipped 6 million Blackwell GPUs. Now, I've confirmed with sources that this was specifically AI GPUs. 6 million of these. So, doing a little napkin maths, that's about 10 to 12 gigawatts of required power, IT load. So when you turn them on, about what they... We've not built anywhere near that many data centers in the last year. And this is in the last 4 quarters. So Michael Burry actually just said this, but I said it 2 weeks ago, Michael. But there are likely millions of GPUs sitting in warehouses waiting to be turned on. So it's not just, as you said, this human psychology of I must double and triple and quadruple down. It's I must keep buying these things even when I don't need them. Satya Nadella of Microsoft said in an interview a couple of weeks ago that he has chips sitting in inventory that do not have power to turn on. I think this is one of the most insane things that's ever happened in history, because I think that NVIDIA is pushing billions of dollars of GPUs on companies that cannot install them. And I mean, Michael Burry's sitting there, he's saying, hey, can someone get me these photos? He's already working on some stuff. If that's the case, it is that doubling down, it's that we don't want to admit we're wrong here. And it is that shareholder pressure as well. I mean, all year we've had we saw Apple Intelligence, one of the greatest radicalizing events against the tech industry I've ever seen. Never seen anyone dislike a product more than Apple Intelligence. But Apple was getting these stories all year being, Apple behind on AI. Apple doesn't have an AI strategy. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Do we want Apple Copilot? No one likes this stuff. It's actually... putting aside the environmental cost and the stealing and the horrible people that love it, it's also just annoying. I'm on Google Docs and I'm trying to write something. It's like, do you need help? No.
Totally. Gemini, stop bothering me. Like, go away.
I don't want Gemini. Leave me alone,
it's like from back in the day when like Clippy, the Microsoft guy, the little icon would come out and ask if you want anything, any help or whatever. It's like, no, Clippy, I want you to go away. So you mentioned NVIDIA, and you wrote a blog post recently comparing NVIDIA to Enron. Wow. And for folks who don't remember or aren't old enough to remember what Enron was, just tell us why you used that metaphor, and at the root of it, what all of these, what you call these weird circular deals are. Tell us about that.
NVIDIA put out the funniest note I've ever seen. They sent sell-side analysts saying they were not Enron. That was the big thing they were saying, because there was a Michael Burry statement and then this AI slop article that got a bunch of stuff wrong. And they were like, we're not. No, it's so much funnier.
I mean, if you're denying that you're Enron, like preemptively denying that you're Enron, that's a warning sign, man.
It gets even better, though, because like, we're nothing like Enron. By the way, we're also nothing like WorldCom, and we're nothing like Lucent. It's just, mate, I was not asking. What are you talking about? But they're not like Enron was actively corrupt and criminal. They were taking debt, putting it in SPVs, letting the SPVs die. It's kind of like Lucent in that Lucent's big thing was vendor financing. Lucent were their famous WinStar deal, where they did a $2 billion deal with WinStar Communications, long dead, where they loaned them money that WinStar would then pay. They would pay them as well as the debt. But the big thing there was NVIDIA is not doing that. What NVIDIA is doing instead is investing in these companies called neoclouds, like CoreWeave, for example, my least favorite company in the world. These companies, these neoclouds, all they do is they build AI data centers and they rent the GPUs out. Unprofitable, horribly unprofitable, and requiring billions of dollars in debt. Now, CoreWeave, invested in by NVIDIA, their IPO propped up by NVIDIA, and you'll never guess what, NVIDIA is also one of their customers. Now, you may ask, how does CoreWeave, an unprofitable company, raise Raise debt. How would that happen? Real simple. They take those GPUs that they bought from NVIDIA, and then they take the contract with guaranteed compute from NVIDIA, and then they raise money, and you'll never guess what they buy with that debt. More GPUs. And that is the circular financing situation. There's a company called Lambda. NVIDIA is doing exactly the same thing. NVIDIA, one of their largest customers. Lambda raising debt. Well, they're trying to go public next year. Raising debt, buy GPUs. NVIDIA isn't doing vendor financing that I know of. In this analyst note, there was this very worrying thing where NVIDIA said, and I quote, "We do not disclose any vendor financing deals." Now, just to be clear, people are meant to read that and say that they do not have any. No, that sentence says they don't disclose any, so we do not know. We actually have no idea, and it's not like NVIDIA's PR is particularly helpful. But these circular deals exist for NVIDIA to create companies that raise debt that then buy GPUs with that debt. If anything, this is one of the largest lootings of private equity and venture capital in history. And Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, maybe one of the best salespeople of all time, don't know about the ethics.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like what you're describing is, I'm not using this term in an exaggerated way or a hyperbolic way, but that sounds very Ponzi scheme-ish. It sounds like something waiting to collapse. So I think on the question of whether it's a bubble and what happens if it's a bubble, the top line question I want to ask for people who are hearing this and thinking, okay, you've just described to me like a lot of shit that's happening in the tech industry. People probably presume there's a lot of shit in the tech industry. I think one question that comes up is, okay, so it's a bubble. It's unstable. Maybe it's a Ponzi scheme. The Ponzi scheme may teeter, may collapse. Why should anyone who's not in big tech care about that?
So the whole thing with it is, it's not really a Ponzi scheme in the sense that this is all real dollars and cents. I hope.
Right.
I think it is.
Hopefully.
But the instability is that NVIDIA is already doing something called channel stuffing, which is when they sell more GPUs to people way before they need them. It takes years to install. Power isn't there. The instability there is that at some point someone's going to go, "Hey, Jensen, I'd love to buy more GPUs. However, I have a warehouse full of them, and I'm not going to be able to plug these bloody things in for a long time. I'm just going to hold off until I'm ready to plug these in. Then I'd love to buy 2 generations from now." NVIDIA's whole existence as the largest company on the stock market is built on the idea that it will continue to grow forever. Based on its current growth trajectory, 60% year-over-year growth, let's say, from its last quarter, it means that in a year's time, in one quarter, NVIDIA will have to make $90-something billion in revenue. Now, why is this a problem for everyone else? Oh, I don't know. That without NVIDIA, the stock market would have been contracting for some time. And on top of that, it's the largest company in the stock market. The value of the US stock market is attached to this company that will stop making this money. Because at some point, we're going to run out of actual available capital. And people will say, oh, we have money printed. Real dollars need to get in NVIDIA's accounts at some point. You can't. Is all private equity going to flow into this? Is all banking debt going to flow into it? No, it's inevitable that this stops. And that's before you get to the fact that none of this bloody stuff makes money. So where it affects real people is it's likely in your 401ks. And on top of that, tech-related stocks are all affected by AI.
Yeah,
everything.
So let's get to the gap between what AI companies are promising versus what they're delivering and the shortcomings of what they are delivering. The idea of endless growth seems to be fueled, I think, by this idea that AI will continue, or will start and continue, to deliver real productivity gains, all sorts of incredible innovations, et cetera, et cetera. And that I think underneath that presumption is this idea that the AI will reach this general intelligence or even super intelligence where the AI will start developing its own AI. I think the question that comes up from this is, first and foremost, is let's talk about what the AI companies are promising versus the shortcomings in what they're delivering? Like, what's the gap between what they are promising that will theoretically deliver endless growth versus what is actually being delivered, or at least that we know of that's being delivered?
Well, I mean, the easiest place to start is that a business model, just a business model that makes more money than it costs to provide the services.
Sure.
The myth that they like to spread is, wow, the cost of the models is coming down. Because the way they say that is, well, a model that can complete a benchmark to a high degree, and these benchmarks, by the way, are rigged for the models because you can't have them do regular tasks, because large language models cannot do that. So they are getting better at benchmarks, kind of, and it's cheaper to pay for a model today than it was a year ago that can solve a benchmark to a higher degree. The reason this sounds so unconvincing is because it is. It's just, great, we've managed to make them better at taking a test. What can they actually do in practicality? And that's actually the issue. The practical outcomes of these models are not that good. Agents as an idea, this term of this agent, this autonomous thing that can go and do things with your computer, that can go and do these tasks, they don't work. None of them work. You've got Salesforce out there talking about Agentforce, like this real thing that is able to do autonomous labor. That's off their website. It's a lie. I don't know how that's not illegal, by the way. I mean, you can say labor means many different things, I guess, but these actual models have been promised to do all of these things. Back in 2023, there was a New York Times story, and multiple people reported this, saying that the ChatGPT was able to convince a TaskRabbit to solve a CAPTCHA. Now, this never happened, by the way. It was a scenario that was in a document that was linked to within another document, but no one bothered to check. This industry is built on myth. It's built on this idea that artificial general intelligence can come. We have no proof that it's possible. We actually have no proof that it's possible to do that. And if it is possible, it's not possible based on using, effectively, very large-scale probability. Because that's really what large language models are. Large language models are very transform-based architecture, comparing two different vectors, what have you. It is just probability.
I wonder if I do wonder if like at the core of this, I mean, you hear about AI is going to help with medical tests, like diagnosing, being able to better diagnose future prevalence or future possibility of disease, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. I put like that kind of thing in one box, and then I put most of what I hear about corporate exuberance for AI in the other bucket of, we're going to get to have an economy where we don't need workers anymore.
Yes.
In other words, where a few people own everything and can make everything and can provide all of the services without needing to employ anyone. And that if you're able to do that, you cut all of your labor costs. It's almost like I mean, that's been the dream, frankly, of corporate oligarchs for as long as America has existed, as long as the corporate form has existed. Is that at the core of the central selling proposition of AI companies, that this technology is going to liberate the owners from labor?
I mean, sure, but it's kind of like saying that Microsoft was going to hunt and kill the Grinch. It's mythology.
Right.
These things don't do labor. Like, they're nowhere near close. They would love it if they could do, like, they are lascivious. One thing of this era, the innovation we've seen, is we've really seen, so putting on the glasses from They Live, we've seen the people who are really excited to replace workers. How the horniness they have. Ooh, I can't wait. And also we've seen how many dipshits there are. How many people who are like, oh, AI can do this when it can't. And so, yeah, they're very excited for this idea of digital labor. They always have been, to your point. But we're so far from that. I don't think people recognize how far we are from that. Because you look across the media, people are talking about AI replacing jobs. There's been 3 or 4 different studies saying AI is replacing jobs. All of them are bollocks. They're nonsense. Latest one I saw was 11% of jobs can already be done by AI. Mm-hmm. PhD students' paper. Just right there, already weird. And on top of that, it's a list of skills that they've decided are AI related. Everyone, if you have a successful industry, you don't have to do, I don't know, mental algebra. You don't have to do card tricks and magician tricks to make people think that this is the future. You just pointed it. Steve Jobs didn't have to convince you that the iPhone was a big deal. You're like, oh, wow, it's 3 fucking devices all in one. That's incredible. You kind of saw what was happening. With this, from the very beginning, they've never really had a way of connecting what ChatGPT could do to any actual digital labor. And so you've got this situation where I think most of ChatGPT's growth came from the fact that Google search went to hell. And I think that a lot of people use it just as a kind of different search. I don't want to say better because I don't know if it is, but it's at least a different one. And you can have conversational questions with it in a way that Google search doesn't really have. I have to wonder if Google hadn't kind of stripped Ben Gomes of his powers and put the former head of ads, Prabhakar Raghavan, in there, whether Google search might have just stopped this all from happening. But I also think that there's a weird layer of executive ignorance here. The companies are run by MBAs now. Andy Jassy of Amazon, MBA. Sundar Pichai, MBA, former McKinsey. Tim Cook, MBA. Mark Zuckerberg, not an MBA, but didn't write a line of code since 2006. It's the management class taking over. And these people don't know anything. They don't, and all they're capable of doing is doing what the other guy is doing. So everybody has been chasing their tail for years because they don't know what to do. To your point earlier, what they meant to do, go, yeah, this is a huge mistake. We buggered it up really big time, folks. We really shouldn't have bought these GPUs. They do not make us money. We are losing so much. We shouldn't have done that. No, they're going to keep doing this until one of them gives them permission to stop. When someone says we are no longer putting massive amounts of CapEx, or we're massively reducing CapEx, that will be the moment, because none of these people are doing it because it helps. Like, look at Meta. Meta's chatbot is insane. They're not making a red cent from this whole thing. Jeff Horwitz over at Reuters reported their chatbot using like a Kylie Jenner AI avatar convinced a man with dementia to go to New York, and then he fell over and died trying to meet with this AI. This stuff should be illegal. Every time I tell a story like that, that's just my immediate thought. But on top of it, being an ethical minefield and built on stealing and environmental damage, it just does not goddamn work. It doesn't do work. You can't make it do work. That's why it's not replacing workers, because it can't do it. And the industry is kind of eroding, like translation and transcription. They've been trying to use machine-assisted translation for a long time. Brian Merchant over at Blood and the Machine has a great piece on this. It's eroding the sides of contract labor where executives already didn't want to pay people and are already trying to pay them bottom-of-the-barrel prices anyway. But they want this big, sexy story of, labor's going away. Half the white-collar jobs are going to die because of this. That's marketing. Oh, there's going to be a government bailout. Marketing. All of it is marketing to make this seem more of a big deal than it is, other than the big deal of the financial problems we're going to face as a result.
So in the lead up to the financial crisis, there wasn't a ton of accountability journalism sounding the alarm. There has been books written about this. The watchdog that didn't bark is one metaphor for that era. There was a lot of not just irrational exuberance among the bankers selling what they were selling and the politicians who they had essentially bought off, but there was a lot of triumphalism and glorification of the era of deregulation, financial deregulation, in the lead up to the financial crisis. Do you see a similar vibe in the day-to-day journalism that is covering the AI situation? Do you think the large media companies out there are doing an adequate job of sounding the alarms that you're sounding, or are we reliving a rehash of that pre-financial crisis era?
We're reliving it while also experiencing new stuff. I think the majority of the mainstream media have completely blown it with AI. I think that they are not doing the work to understand the technology. They're not doing the work to understand the finances. And I think they're doing so because there is consensus. The consensus of the market says AI is going to be big now. And I understand, especially young journalists who can't just go, hey, this looks stupid. Because if you're a major tech site and your editor-in-chief has said, we need to be nice to AI, which is a thing that's happened perhaps, then yeah, you probably can't be negative about it. You're also not rewarded for knowing more. You're not rewarded for understanding LLMs or agents, what have you. And so it's also the consequence of having years of no mentorship or really support for young journalists as well. But also, there are large outlets that just want to support the AI industry. They want to be the ones that have it's not just access journalism, though it absolutely is. It's this thing of they want to be the ones to herald the future. They want to be the ones to say the things the powerful have. They want to believe that Sam Altman is this genius. Even though if you listen to him speak, I don't know how you possibly come to that conclusion. He does not sound smart at all. But it's this sense of everybody's oinking the same way, so it's hard to squawk. But really, I just feel like people want the powerful to win. They want tech to bring them the future. Because when you start pushing back against that, when you start saying, okay, perhaps the tech industry doesn't know its arse from its ear hole, you have to say, why are these people so rich then? Why? They're smart, right? They're smart. That's why they're rich. It's not because of opportunism, boys club bullshit. It's not cliques. No. It's because they're so smart. And they'd never, ever sink so much money into something that wasn't the future. Because when you really sit down and read this stuff, as I have in the last year or two, and you look at what these people have said and what's actually happened, it's very easy to become quite black-pilled about it. It's very easy to feel quite dark. On top of it, I don't think a lot of these people give a shit. I don't think they give a shit about knowing the truth. I don't think they give a shit about making sure their audiences are well informed. I think they're afraid of pissing off the companies for some reason. I don't know why. And also, learning's hard. I'm not saying, by the way, that everyone doesn't know anything, but it's like, to understand this, it has not been easy. I've had to learn corporate accountancy, economics in a way that I did not know even a year ago. But even then, you've got a lot of just denialism. You've just got people who don't want to face the truth, because when you've got an editorial class at the top rung who are saying, no, AI is big. All my mates are saying AI is big. The smart guy that I just talked to, AI is big. All this money couldn't possibly be wrong. I get it. I get why you wouldn't want to push back at it. But at the same time, this is now people's 401ks. This is so much retail investor money. There's real people, regular people on Robinhood and the like, who are putting money into these companies. And it's all disconnected from any value creation. My favorite example is this Oracle deal that was signed
tell
back
us about that. Yeah.
$300 billion, 5-year-long deal with OpenAI. Now, I don't teach you this in business school, David. Here's the problem. OpenAI doesn't have the money. Also, Oracle doesn't have the capacity built. I mean, otherwise it's great.
Sounds like a great deal.
Yeah. It's just, and it sent the stock flying, but now it's dropped because it's kind of nonsensical. But OpenAI has promised all of these companies all of this money, but when you look one inch behind the curtain, it doesn't exist. The NVIDIA deal, they were meant to get $100 billion from NVIDIA. It said this in NVIDIA's earnings, a letter of intent with the opportunity to invest. You know,
I mean, you're describing
aspects of a plan.
I mean, what you're describing is like a $500 billion fire fest, right? But
there's real things.
Yeah, I mean, you're painting the portrait of the people who are running these companies are, if not hucksters, maybe magicians. They're good sleight of hand, meaning magicians like they've got these tricks to obscure what's actually going on. I mean, it really does sound like what the financial crisis was uncovered to be in the after action reports. I do wonder how much you think our own, I guess, mythology is baked into the assumptions being made by all of this. Like, listen, I'm a child of the 80s, right? There's a lot of movies and TV shows that forecast a future, some horrifying futures, like The Terminator, where the machines do finally reach some kind of general intelligence or super intelligence, sort of baked into the stories we've been telling ourselves, that computers will ultimately become beyond what they are now. They will become, I guess, the vision that a lot of these tech CEOs are selling. In other words, we're primed, in a sense, culturally, to accept the premise that they are selling. How much do you think that's part of this problem in accepting the media, accepting it, a lot of folks in business accepting the premise that these are stories that we've been told for a generation or two?
I think you're right. I think AI is the natural thing that people aspire to technologically. We all think of Commander Data or what have you, or like Jarvis from Iron Man or what have you. We all think of things like that. That being said, the big difference with the media and the financial crisis is I don't remember analysts on social media, I guess wasn't around back then in the same way, trumpeting this. I don't remember, and I've looked. I read a lot of WorldCom crap. There are so many. There's a Wall Street Journal piece about profits. Why do we need them? Like, there's insane things that got written, but there are people who go out there, newsletter writers who go out there specifically with the intention of boosting the AI industry. There are analysts that do so as well. We have people, and there were people sued around, I believe, Winstar related to this as well, analysts who refused to mark down telecommunications stocks. I think we have another thing where we've got this, all of us, I don't know if I'd include myself anymore, but that's just because I've read too much now and my brain hurts, but we're all kind of primed for the AI story. On top of that, we're kind of gaslit into believing the tech industry always pulls it off. We've seen them pull it off before. And we have these mythologies of, oh, it's just like Uber. Because Uber spent $33 billion from 2019 to 2022, and they're profitable now. Doesn't matter that the economics are completely different. And also, $33 billion is, I think, going to be 1 year of OpenAI's compute spend with one company in 2 years. They'll be dead by then. But nevertheless, we've built these mythologies up. And on top of it, in the current political climate we're in, everyone's kind of beaten the fuck down. Everyone feels horrible. So you've got this thing of these CEOs lying, just lying. Mark Zuckerberg said a few months ago, oh, we've seen the first signs that these models are learning, self-learning. Nonsense, lies, complete bollocks. No one should be able, that should not be it. That sucks. Shouldn't be making stuff up, Zuck. But we read these things and it's easy to just be like, yeah, of course they're going to win. Of course they're going to do this. And even if you think it's going to burst, it's really easy to go, well, they'll get a government bailout. The magic of this is there is no bailout coming. They can't bail this out. Our entire economy is based on selling eternal amounts of GPUs forever that must increase forever to real companies accepting real cash. Unless we're going to create top two and then triple it, quadruple probably, and have it pay every single year just to NVIDIA, we can't reverse this. But nevertheless, we are kind of all beaten down by this idea that the bad guys keep winning, when this is a scenario where they're taking advantage of that by scaring people, by putting out these things. Dario Amodei of Anthropic, real just huckster, liar, scummy guy, saying, oh, I think it was 25 to 50% of white-collar labor will be replaced, and people are already primed to believe that AI could do this. Doesn't matter that Claude can't do anything. You can't even use these things as an actual assistant. Try and reliably have this do anything. It can't do it. But nevertheless, we're ready, we're primed.
And I also think that there's like the other factor here is the deference to things that are seen as so complex that only sort of super geniuses can understand them. We saw that during the financial crisis, the sort of deference to the so-called masters of the universe. We saw that, frankly, during the Vietnam War era, the so-called best and brightest, right? They had a secret plan, or they knew best about how to win an unwinnable war. I mean, this is a recurring theme in American society where, let the experts who are these super geniuses, they must know what they're doing. It can't possibly be that they're basically hucksters. So I do think that's also infusing this. Now, we talked about a little bit about what a popping bubble would look like, hitting people's 401ks and the like. I want to ask you, knowing what you know, let's do the set 15 minutes or 30 minutes into the future scenario. Let's say the bubble starts popping. Even when I use that metaphor, what does that mean? What does that look like day to day, week to week? Game out a scenario. We learn this, then this news happens, then this happens. What does that situation look like in your mind?
So I can't see the future, but it's important to start with a really simple thing, which is that the AI bubble, as you know it, is not based on anything other than continual funding for OpenAI, continual funding for Anthropic, and NVIDIA. NVIDIA's ability to sell more GPUs. Everything else is mythology. Every stock burst based on a theoretical deal based on mythology. OpenAI themselves maybe $4.5 billion in revenue through the first 9 months of the year, I believe, based on some sourcing I did. But putting all that aside, what happens next? So, again, cannot see the future. This is a guess. Michael Burry right now is that 6 million GPU thing I told you about.
Michael Burry of Big Short fame.
Exactly. Scion Capital. He's now, after years of hibernation, he's come back like a pale horseman. And he's come back and he said the other day, 2 weeks after me, okay, 6 million GPUs, very likely there's warehouses full of them. I believe those photos could come out. And I think the visual of thousands of GPUs sat unused, not ready to be plugged in due to the physical things that are stopping them putting them, the power not, because it's not just the power not existing. Even if the power existed, it's getting it there and safely delivering it into the building, which also needs to be built. So these millions of GPUs, thousands of GPUs, however many we see in these warehouses, they will shock the market. They'll show the market that there is an oversupply of GPUs. It's no longer a hot item. Now it's Jensen Huang's FinDom operation where he calls Satya Nadella at 3 a.m. and says, give me $3 billion pig. Once people see that, they'll realize NVIDIA's growth story is kind of broken. NVIDIA is not a company that is shipping millions of GPUs to people who are eagerly plugging them in and creating AI stuff. They are channel stuffing, sending stuff to people before they need it because NVIDIA needs to beat earnings. The moment the market smells that and proves it, the moment NVIDIA's growth story unravels. I believe there could be a brief burst where they shift these several-year-old H200 GPUs to China, maybe make a couple billion there. But I think around February and that earnings is when the wheels are going to come off a bit. I also think that OpenAI, within the next 6 months, is going to have funding issues. They are owed $22.5 billion from SoftBank that's meant to be there by the end of December. I don't think SoftBank has that money to go. SoftBank has to deal with its shareholders about the maximum amount of leverage they're able to do against their assets. They're right up against that. Masayoshi Son of SoftBank, they had to sell all their NVIDIA stock, and he said he was crying when he did it. Now, just want to be clear. When things are going well, you don't generally cry. Anywho, when OpenAI faces these problems, you will start seeing anxiety within the industry. I think venture capitalists are going to push their AI investments to start selling to people. Now, the problem with this is twofold. One, every AI company is basically doing prompt engineering on top of an OpenAI model or an Anthropic one. Prompt engineering literally just meaning each instruction you give the model, you give the product, like Cursor, it's actually taking that, turning it into an instruction set and putting it into the model. It's very complex versions of that, but that's what it is. When the desperation sets in and everyone in AI VC tries to either raise money or sell, that will create a panic syndrome where no one wants to buy, no one wants to sell. VC starts saying, whoa, I don't know about this. This AI thing that I just learned was not profitable. I did not know this. Wow, I couldn't possibly. The moment that story gets into the zeitgeist, things will unravel. And if OpenAI can't raise money, I think they die within a year, but death for OpenAI will be absorbed into Microsoft. I also think, and people keep talking about Anthropic, which is the other big model company, as this so-called efficient one. Anthropic has raised, I think, $16.5 billion in 2025. That's only $2 billion or so less than $2 billion less than OpenAI. Anthropic is just as a messy a bitch as OpenAI. I think Anthropic, too, will run into money troubles within the next year if they can't keep raising eternal funding. Perhaps they get another suicide round, which is when you raise at such a high amount that you can't really do anything with it. Or, alternatively, and I really hope this one happens, do you remember what happened with WeWork?
Yeah, I mean, I know the vague story for sure.
So, they were a big unprofitable, and they still kind of are,
right,
unprofitable, massively venture-backed company that rented out office space. WeWork fell apart when WeWork failed to go public. And it's because, turns out, their business sucked. It was just a terrible business. It was obvious the whole time, but it was really obvious then because right now, all of the leaks about revenues and growth and all that, it's leaks to journalists from investor documents. Not in my case, but nevertheless. And so the real audited financials of these companies are going to look like a dog's asshole on Thanksgiving. It's going to look really bad. Anthropic is apparently rushing to go public next year. I really hope they do, because I think they file that paperwork and the reality of AI sets in.
Right. So when they go public, they have to file disclosures. Right.
The S1.
Yeah. They have to show at least some of their books for real.
Yes. And they'll need to let a real auditor in. And while you can play kind of financial kung fu with this stuff, and like, ooh, well, we got growth in this area, there's still some addition and subtraction you just can't hide. So you're going to find, and it's, even if Anthropic somehow manages to go public, this S1 is going to show in violent detail how poor these economics are. And the moment that happens, things unravel. Because right now, and this is the craziest thing, I think, we don't right now have a good sense of how much it costs to run an AI GPU. The literal thing holding up the US stock market.
That's crazy.
Imagine if we did not know any cars miles per gallon.
Right.
Because that's basically it. We don't know. And I understand why, because it's a complex thing where you don't have one GPU, you have an NVL72 GB200. You have 72 of the things with 36 CPUs. So there's a lot of money and debt and labor and all that. But we don't know. I think the moment that comes into focus is the moment all of this kind of shakes apart. And it's crazy we don't know that. It really is insane.
It really is. And the situation you're describing on a timetable that's not too far in the future. I mean, as you've alluded to, I mean, this is the whole stock market. This is 401ks. This is pension funds. I mean, this is really the whole economy. So with the limited time that we have left, I want to ask you a couple of other big picture questions. I mean, there is this whole idea running concurrently that we're in this so-called arms race with China over AI. If this bubble bursts the way you've just described, what do you say to those who would argue that this means that we're going to lose that race and that would be catastrophic for the United States, the Western world, or will the bubble pop worldwide? I mean, what do you make of that whole sort of geopolitical argument?
I think anyone who talks about the AI race with China should have to sit in one of the things from Saw, and they're only let out if they can explain what they mean. Because most people talking about the AI arms race, they don't know. Oh no, does China? Are they going to get a large language model that gives incorrect information?
Right, like that's the thing I don't understand. Like that's what I don't understand. Like China's going to have a better Clippy. Like why should I be afraid of that? Like I don't get it.
It's bullshit politic. It's just, well, how do we sell this? The Chinese, they're going to do something. And you look over at what China's doing, and they've got like nice electric cars, a bunch of solar, their AI. Even one of their, Joseph Tsai, I think it was, earlier in the year was like, yeah, there's a bubble with AI data centers. There was a story earlier in the year about AI data centers sat unused in China. Like the arms race with China means nothing. It doesn't, there's no, what are we winning or losing right now? Say we get 100 bazillion GPUs. Now what? Now what? People will say we're in the early days. Okay, we have all the kings, all of the media, all of the money in the world, all of the attention, all of the lack of regulations. People talk about, oh no, AI regulations are going to go away. What AI regulations? I don't know what, those don't exist either. But let's say we have this unregulated thing where everyone has GPUs. Now what? We've had Microsoft, Meta, Google, Amazon, OpenAI, Anthropic. We've had all of these companies working on all of these models. And then what have we got exactly? There was this hilarious story that came out. OpenAI has a code red right now. Code red because of Gemini 3. Gun to my head, could not tell you what the real difference is with Gemini 3 and ChatGPT. No one can. I've talked to numerous experts. It's like, yeah, they're better at benchmarks. Cool. But when you looked at the story from the information about the code red, OpenAI's plan was they were going to put ads on hold because they've been flirting with the idea, and I can get into ads, it's not going to work. But nevertheless, they put ads on hold, and their plan was simple. They're going to improve the responses from ChatGPT. They're going to make ChatGPT do more, and they're going to find ways to make people like ChatGPT more. To which I ask, what the hell have you been doing the last year? What have you been up to? Because that's the thing. I think these AI companies are sitting there spinning their wheels, burning cash, trying to work out something, maybe, that might make more money than it loses. And they're all failing. Microsoft can't sell AI software. I mean, Oracle right now is the only company I think that might actually be, other than OpenAI, that actually has an existential risk here because they're taking on $58 billion worth of debt, $18 billion of bonds, $38 billion of debt with Vantage to build data centers just for OpenAI. This whole thing is just, it's farcical.
Okay, so my
race with China means nothing.
So my final question for you then, as you a self-described AI hater, are you rooting for the AI bubble to pop? And for those who fear both job losses and all the Terminator, Skynet scenarios that have sort of been thrown out there, should they be rooting for the bubble to burst? I guess what I'm asking is there a silver lining here if the machine comes crashing down? Should we actually want the bubble to burst as quickly as possible because the longer it's blowing up, the worse it's going to be? Like, where are you on, like, what should we be hoping for?
I want it to burst as soon as possible because the sooner it bursts, the sooner we can get back to doing something else. I also think this era has proven there are a bunch of journalists, bunch of analysts, and bunch of companies run by people that just lie or people that don't know stuff. I think that's good for us to know. I think we've now revealed who is really excited to fire everyone. And I think we've also revealed that the smartest people working on stuff are actually pretty stupid. But more importantly, the end of this era is going to lead to a massive revaluation of tech stocks that we desperately need. Right now, the tech industry is fueled by growth, run by management consultants. We need to get, I don't know if there was ever a good time in the tech industry, but there was a better time than this. We've lost the chance to break up Google at this point, but we need these companies to take a haircut. We need these companies to stop doing what they're doing right now and burning capex. We need to see someone like Satya Nadella fired. We need punishments for these people so that we enter the next era, which is going to be a bit rough. Because I think we're going to see a lot of layoffs in the tech industry as they realize there is no hypergrowth market. There is no next smartphone or cloud computing, or if there is, it ain't large language models. All of these companies have committed to these hundreds of billions of GPUs at this point. Those GPUs are going to take an impairment at some point. They're going to be worth less in a few years, and they're going to have to mark them down. It's going to be a hit to earnings. All of these things have to happen so that we can move on to the next era, which is ideally going to be moving away from this growth focus or having smaller tech firms. Because the current state of the Magnificent Seven is untenable, and the current state of the tech industry is obsessed with growing things as big as possible and selling them to people. But the hubris of the last few years has been, what if nobody's buying, and what if we're not actually building anything worth anything? I think the current state of the tech industry needs to change, and we need a violent shock to do so, economically speaking, because allowing them to do what they want has led us here.
Ed Zitron is a journalist, host of the Better Offline podcast, and author of the forthcoming book, Why Everything Stopped Working. That's coming out in 2026. Ed Zitron, thank you so much for taking time with us. Thank you for all of your reporting and your writing, which I read voraciously. Thank you for continuing to try to hold the tech industry accountable.
Thanks so much for having me.